be around for questions, so we're going to move on to try to stay on schedule. So next we have Maia Draper-Reich to talk about a new book that's come out. That's a really cool book. Maia's also on the organizing committee of the symposium, so come on up.
Is this my slide advancer? Okay. Aim there. Oh, I see. Okay, good morning, everybody. All right, my name is Maia Draper-Reich. I am the outreach coordinator for the Prince William Sound Regional Citizens Advisory Council. And as mentioned, I'm thrilled today to get to share with you this new illustrated book. Oh, I'm loud. Good, got it. This new illustrated book that we have worked on over the last 2.5 years to create with author and illustrator Tom Crestodina. So thank you to the symposium for helping us launch this book. This is part of our official spring launch. And over the next 20 minutes or so, I'll explain our goals taking on this project, the development process, the book's content, and our intentions and goals moving forward to share this valuable resource. Okay. Great. All right, so for those of you who don't know about the Prince William Sound Regional Citizens Advisory Council, or perhaps the Council, as I'll shorten it, we are one of 2 such councils that were formed following the Exxon Valdez oil spill. Our nonprofit organization was formed to represent the people who live and work in the region that was impacted by the Exxon Valdez disaster. So that includes the communities of Prince William Sound, the Kenai Coast, Lower Cook Inlet, and all of Kodiak as well. And our mission is written out there at the top of the slide: citizens promoting the environmentally safe operation of the Alyeska terminal and associated tankers. So our work as a citizens group is to advise the local industry companies, regulatory agencies, elected officials, and the public on issues related to oil spill prevention and response. And we represent this region, illustrated here, because of the extent of the spilled oil's reach. So at that time of the spill, it was recognized that the people of the region must have a voice with this oil industry, the shipping of oil happening in these waters, in these very environmentally and culturally important waters near important coastlines. So in the years since the spill, our council has specifically paid attention to the Valdez Marine Terminal across the Sound in Valdez, and the tankers that transport crude oil through Prince William Sound away from that terminal. We do independent research and oversight projects to make sure that facility and those tanker ships are operating as safely as possible. So here is one of Tom's illustrations of the Exxon Valdez spill. We do this work, from the citizen perspective, all in the name of preventing a future marine oil spill here in Prince William Sound and making sure we're able to respond effectively if something were to occur. Part of our mandate is to promote and educate about the now robust oil spill prevention and response system that Alyeska Pipeline Service Company operates in Prince William Sound. Regulations and requirements changed at the state and federal level pretty immediately after the spill. And then as a result, the system that is in place today now includes the best oil tanker escort tugs in the world and the largest fleet of purpose-built oil spill response equipment. And so we share about that and educate in a couple ways. Some of you maybe joined us back in September 2024 here in Whittier. We had a tour on board a passenger boat where we took community members, including students and local leaders, out to view the local oil spill response training that happens every year for vessels here in Whittier. That training happens for vessels across a total of 6 communities in our region. And so we've had a project for many years where we host such a tour, a public tour for one of the communities. But that can only get a limited number of people out to view the oil spill response tactics and that sort of thing. So from that tour, which is always a great success and a really excellent opportunity for learning, the question has always been, what is the next, what is the next outreach tool we can create to reach a broader audience to share more widely about this excellent system? And so our director of communications, Brooke, was inspired by Tom's first book that he published. That's the one there on the slide, Working Boats. Some of you maybe are familiar with that illustrated book. We were wondering, what if we had something like that to explain our system here? So if you're unfamiliar, Tom's first book features his signature cutaway vessel style that illustrates a variety of boats, explaining how they work, explaining how people occupy them, explaining how the boats facilitate people's lives and careers. And he is an artist and author based down in Bellingham, Washington, but he is also a working commercial fisherman. He fishes in Southeast Alaska every year. And so we set out to answer the question, how can collaborating with artist and author Tom Crestodina help us tell the story of the prevention and response system put in place following the Exxon Valdez oil spill? So the goals for the project were to educate stakeholders and the public about the importance of marine oil spill prevention, why the Prince William Sound system is one of the best in the world, and how that system is maintained and improved. And from the council's perspective, we of course also wanted to highlight that we need citizen involvement as one of the pieces to keep this system as excellent as it is. So topics in the book include an overview of the council and of Alyeska Pipeline Service Company and their SERVS program, which is Ship Escort Response Vessel System, or SERVS. It includes cutaway layouts for a tanker, a tug, and illustrations explaining the response barges, the contracted fishing vessels. There's a cutaway of the pilot boat, which I'll show you here in a moment. And it highlights, again, what makes our system excellent and how we can keep it that way. So the process over the last 2.5 years, of course, we had to engage Tom, get him on board, and engage key industry partners. We were going to need input from Alyeska Pipeline Service Company, from Polar Tanker, one of the tanker companies, from the Southwestern Alaska Pilots Association, and a few others. We were able to arrange for Tom to come up and visit Valdez and get tours of a variety of vessels involved in the system that are now featured in the book. Then, of course, it was the illustration and writing phase. We had a significant review phase, or I'll say phases, both by our industry partners and by our council membership and staff. I think we had 6 industry reviews, more, book saying more, 8, 8 industry reviews, and even more rounds of council, board member, volunteer, and staff review. So quite a lot of cooks in the kitchen and input going to Tom, and he worked excellently with that, all in the name of creating an incredibly accurate and informative product. Then, of course, we had to finalize and prepare the material for a printer. We got it printed, and it was a very exciting day last month in April when the books arrived in hand at our office, and now here we are in our spring launch of this book. And then we'll be looking ahead over the coming years for continued outreach. These are some pictures. That's Tom there in the white hard hat and the orange float coat. We had very generous tours given by our partners over in Valdez. So that bottom picture, Tom got to go out on to board and tour one of the Polar tanker vessels. That's not something many people get to do. They're pretty strict with security over there. So we were very grateful he got to do that. That center picture, he's sitting up in one of the escort tugs. And he got to tour many, many vessels. He got to do a ride along on the pilot boat. Our partners over there were very generous with their vessels and their time to share all the detail that Tom needed. He was communicating with them throughout the process as well. So what we ended up with is a book that introduces the history of oil in Alaska and then tells the story of the Exxon Valdez oil spill, and then tells the story of the oil spill prevention and response system in place now. And that includes the vessels, the equipment, and the people who make this system one of the best in the world. And every illustration shows a real tactic or use of equipment, providing detail and information in a visually digestible way. So these pairings here, I tried to find photos that really match the training tactics. These are examples of training tactics that fishing vessels in the 6 ports that train every year might do, and something you might see on our community boat tours. Now everyone can see it in our book. So this is an example spread. This is the cutaway of the pilot boat. So for those of you unfamiliar, pilots are specialized captains that board large boats, large vessels that are transiting into ports in general, and including here in Alaska. So where we are, that includes tanker ships, but also for Whittier, that includes cruise ships. And the pilots have local training. They know these waters, they know the ports and the docks best. So that is an added layer of expertise and accident prevention, having them board and guide the boats in. As you can see in this spread, there is a specialized pilot boat that delivers the pilots to the large ship. Pilots board these ships as they're underway, as they're moving. And so this boat has all kinds of special stabilizing features. The rail is set in so that pilots can hang on and then reach for that ladder hanging down, which is how they climb up. And there's all kinds of mechanisms so that they can do that safely. And so this page is sharing that information about the pilot boat, but also about that pilot transfer. And you can see that inset drawing there on the right, showing kind of how the pilot boat will pull up to a tanker in motion. This is another example spread. This illustration was not originally in the book plan, but came from Tom's learning through this process. And it is one that has already proved very, very valuable. We've used it in multiple venues to explain about the ship escort vessel response system, or SERVS, fleet that Alaska Pipeline Service Company operates. So on the left are all of the vessels involved in ship escort and then oil spill response. So you can see those large 5 escort tugs, the 4 smaller utility tugs. There's some additional vessels there. You may recognize that orange tug, the Rosh West. That's the one that travels to the different communities for vessel training. Featured there are the oil spill response barges. There are 4 that are identical, and then the top and bottom one are specialized, these mini barges there. And then on the right-hand side, there are 350 fishing vessels depicted, or smaller local vessels depicted. So Alaska is required to have contracted 279 vessels. And so to do that, to have that many available at any one time, they contract and train 350 vessels every year across 6 ports. So that includes Whittier, Valdez, Cordova, Seward, Homer, and Kodiak. So many of you are likely familiar with that SERVS fishing vessel program, or know somebody who does that training each year. I know there's people in the room that do it. And that is a key way, aside from our council, that is a key way that local people and their knowledge and expertise of these waters in this area is embedded into our response system now. So, and that's a mechanism for these local vessels to respond immediately. So this spread shows that impressive, not only specialized equipment fleet, but also the local vessels that are engaged and trained and essential to the oil spill response plans here. Okay, that brings us to our launch. We are distributing this book for free within our region, so within the Exxon Valdez oil spill region. We do have free copies available for you today, so if you haven't gotten one yet, please come to the back table and pick one up. We already have connected with many of the schools and libraries in the Exxon Valdez oil spill region, and we're working on connecting with all of them. We want to make sure they have copies of the book available. We were grateful that some donors came forward and allowed us to provide copies to the libraries in the Anchorage community, so the public library system, and then the school district, middle and elementary schools. We sent those out with surveys for all the librarians and teachers. You'll see when we hand you a book, we're going to hand you a bookmark with a survey on it too, trying to gauge the reach of the project. And last week, Tom is preparing for his busy season, his fishing season, but he was able to come up and join us in Valdez last week, where we were able to have him do some student outreach, so connect with all the 4th and 5th graders in Valdez, and a group of homeschool students. We also had a community reception, that's that picture in the bottom left, with quite a long line for him to sign books and meet people, and he also did an author talk at the Valdez Library. And we were able on Friday to go out to Tititlik for the final day of their culture festival and distribute books there. We were excited to be invited out for that event as well. And so Whittier is obviously, yesterday we had some books available at Coffee with a Scientist and here today. And we have done this spring also some distribution to our partners who contributed so much to this project. Let's see. We're doing on time. I'll just share, Tom speaks very wonderfully about, the first boat he drew in his style was his fishing boat, and he drew that as a way to explain and share with his son, his young son, who he was away from for the fishing season and missing. He was trying to explain, here's what Dad is up to, here's what he's doing. And I already heard some comments when we were in Valdez that, there were some people who were like, I'm so excited to show my son a tanker like the one I work on. I'm so excited to show my kids what a tug looks like. Or I'm so excited to show them the fishing vessel training that we were just doing a few days ago and what that looks like. So it all feels very aligned. So looking ahead, we're hoping to accomplish our original goals of educating stakeholders in the public about the importance of marine oil spill prevention, about this Prince William Sound system and how it is one of the best in the world, and how that system is maintained and improved. So we're going to continue outreach focused on the Exxon Valdez oil spill region. I'm excited as part of my role to potentially develop lesson plans for teachers and educators to use in association with the book or other resources. We have ability to use the art for other things too, so perhaps posters or other educational materials. I'm sure more ideas will come up as now that we've launched, and we're looking forward to seeing all the possibilities that this can bring. Because the way Tom's art tells the stories, delivers the information and shares about the vessels and the equipment and the people who make the oil spill prevention and response system here so good, it just will be hugely valuable for years to come. And we're excited to, uncover all those possibilities. So acknowledging, working with Tom Crestodina on this was absolutely wonderful. So we'd like to acknowledge him. We'd like to acknowledge our partners, Alyeska and SERVS, Polar Tanker, the Southwestern Alaska Pilots Association, and others, and acknowledge the extensive work that went in from our council project team made up of our volunteers and staff. So on this page, that QR code takes you to our landing page for the book. We have digital versions, PDF and EPUB, available for free up on there. And we hope you grab a physical copy if you would like one today. At the end of the book, we also have a section called Additional Resources. And so we hope that people, including yourselves, who read this book, not only learn about the book's content, but also use those resources to take next steps in their learning. And again, building that citizen involvement piece of the puzzle that is essential to keep this system as excellent as it is. I also have the link here, Prince William's, or pwsrcac.org/lessons. That goes to our free lesson bank resource, which is for educators and teachers. And so that's listed in the back of the book as well. So yeah, feel free to come grab a copy, ask us questions, and I'm happy to take any questions that you have now.
Yeah, we have Barbara in the back.
Thank you, Maya. That was just awesome, and I'm just really wildly excited about this book. And just, I'm just so curious, where did you guys come up with this idea to bring in an artist to spread this just very wide net to communicate just such a important messaging? I love it so much.
Yeah, thank you. Well, our council has created books in the past. Some of you are maybe familiar with the Spill book, which is a firsthand record of folks who experienced the spill and the cleanup. So there was a bit of a precedent for that, but I will give credit to Brooke, who's in the back, who's our director of communications, who again, we've always been asking this question of how can we take that outreach tour that we do in one of the communities and bring it to a broader audience. And she read Tom's first book and was inspired. So I will give her credit. And then, yeah, a lot of work went into it from there.
Thank you, Maya. I have a question about what most of the comments were about. Like, what were the stickiest parts of making this book to agree on across industry and partners and the public or your board?
Ooh. Brooke, do you want to take that one? I would say, there are so many details in this book, and accuracy is key.
So anyone that may be familiar with our group, we take our being a citizens group incredibly seriously. And so there were so many review processes and so many people a part of it. And then we are also a very detail conscious group. So as we were going through, how Tom does his art is he tries to make it as accurate as possible, but he also wants it to be interesting, engaging, and clear. So a prime example of where we hit our sticking points would be the page that shows the terminal. And if you're familiar with the terminal, the number of tanks in the picture is not accurate. And I had to start preemptively sending stuff out. The tank number is not accurate. Please don't send me comments about that, because Tom had tried to make it accurate and felt that it was more clear visually to show people what they were looking at if the tanks were larger. And so he took 2 of the tanks out of the picture. So it was finding that balance between we wanted it to be accurate, but we also want it to be accessible. So are all the illustrations accurate exactly? No, tankers are proprietary. They can't be super meticulously accurate because there's certain things they don't want shown or competitors or that sort of thing. And so balancing his creative direction against our volunteers' wants and needs for this to be so precise was probably the biggest balancing act to handle.
So just curious, how did you find Tom? I mean, I understand he has this other incredible book, which we have, the Working Boats, but how did you find him and decide that he was going to be the one, and what was his, how did you work out negotiating, rights to the book, for example? Did you, it's such an incredible resource to have this online, and then, what's going to come out of this from the activity sheets, so did you have this idea before and then seek out an artist, or, hey, I've seen this book, what do you think about this one?
The latter. So going back to that first question you asked as well, his first book came out, and as director of communications, I have tons of media alerts and news feeds and things that I monitor regularly. And it came up, some of the press coverage of this book, and I thought, oh, this is cool. We have a lot of boat people. A lot of our group are going to love this book. So I just started sharing it out as a of interest kind of thing. And as I started sharing out, I had all these volunteers and board members replying back, well, I'll probably get a copy for my son, niece, grandkid, but I want to read this. I want a copy for me. And so that's where my brain clicked, and I said, wouldn't it be great if we could do this for our system? And so then the next question is, so how do you get Tom to agree to do this? And I'm like, what's the worst that's going to happen? I reach out and he says no. And then we pivot or we don't move forward. But I reached out to him and he was immediately excited by the idea. He loves educating. He loves helping people access this kind of information. So we, from the beginning, we're really clear with him that if we launch into this project, we want it to be co-ownership. You will get full author credit. You can use this however you want, much like when you work with a photographer. They keep the rights to the photos even as you have rights to use them. So we did co-ownership of all the material. We have full rights to use it however we want going forward, as he does. And our contract price, we discussed with him what he would charge somebody for basically a spread size illustration and how many spreads we wanted to make. And so we did a flat contracting price with him. And then he wants his products to be so good. He actually went above and beyond what we had in the contract, and we ended up deciding on an increase to his contract because he was going so far beyond what we had originally agreed upon to make it the quality. In particular, that serve spread that shows all the vessels. That is by and far what is most commented on when people are going through the book. So it was a mix of his willingness to work with us. I was as clear as I possibly could be about the amount of review and input that this project would require. Before you sign that line, just try and understand there's going to be, and he said, no, I'm open to that. It was a really amazing process working with him on this. So we didn't seek out other artists because his book generated the idea, and that's what we wanted was the vessel cutaways and that sort of thing. And then when he agreed, we moved forward.